Intertalk Radio, you're in to all things music.
When we were coming up, it was like you lived in mortal fear of a Frank Zappa audition, the Black Page, Chick Corea, and this and that, that's going to come up, and you're just going to be reduced to just a fraction of your ability because they put dots in front of you.
Welcome to Making It with Terry Woolman, the show that explores the secrets, successes, and strategies for making it in the music biz. And now, here's your host, Terry Woolman.
That put a smile on my face. I'm Terry Woolman. You're on Making It with Terry Woolman. Welcome to the show, and thanks for tuning in. I want to let you know how much I appreciate you joining us on our show. If you missed our last interview, you can hear it and all of our episodes at intertalkradio.com/makingit, or download our app and take us with you. So often I get asked questions about the creative process, so I created this show to focus on what it takes to have a lasting career in the ever-changing landscape of the music business. You're really in for a treat, as I've invited my friends, some of the best and brightest in music, to share their stories on how they have influenced the music that has shaped our lives. I guarantee you're going to love it. So let's get started. My guest today is guitarist producer Josh Sklair. Josh Sklair won his first Grammy Award as producer on the Etta James album Let's Roll for Best Contemporary Blues Album in 2003. The following year, when Etta's Blues to the Bone won Best Traditional Blues Album, Josh received a second Producer's Grammy, celebrating over two decades as musical director, guitar player, co-writer, and arranger for American icon Etta James. Between touring and recording over a dozen albums with Etta, Josh has also maintained a career in Los Angeles recording and or performing with Jeffrey Osborne, the Blues Brothers, SophieB, Hawkins, Jon Lucien, the HB Barnum Orchestra, and many, many other artists that we'll talk about today. You can currently hear Josh on tour with Paul Anka. Please welcome my guest today, Josh Sklair. Welcome. Hey, Josh.
Hey, Terry. Great to be here, finally. At last.
At last. You were just 2 days ago in Chile, weren't you? Or 3 days ago?
The life we chose, right?
The life we chose. Yeah, you definitely stay a moving target, which is kind of a cool thing. Hey, I want to start off by asking you a basic question. I introduced you as a guitarist / producer because I first became aware of you many years ago as a guitarist. How do you view yourself? With all the hyphens that we all do.
Always guitar. Always. I think, I was going to ask you, when were you at Berklee? Were you at 78? I was very briefly there in 78.
Yeah, I think that's when 78,
the blizzard.
79.
You would remember the blizzard if you were there.
Anyway, it came right after the blizzard.
Oh.
I missed the blizzard because I was up for going on tour with Godspell or something, so I just kind of held off, and also it would have been a complete shock for me moving from Miami, to in the winter. So I just missed the blizzard.
Anyway,
that's when I came.
Without going down that wonderful Berklee wormhole, which, as I say, was brief for me. I mean, like most, you think guitar is such a central thing, and it is for me, and it always will be. And with Etta, God bless her, I've been going over the trajectory of my quarter century with her, and the way she insisted on doing her own albums in her own studio with her own people, it's just an unheard of dynamic because, it's always the road band versus the studio band.
That's right.
And she just wasn't having any of that. And, of course, to my great benefit, and then just getting to produce, with her so many records. So as I say, we all do arranging and all that other stuff. But guitar, I think, is the most defining label for me, definitely.
Mm-hmm. So how did
you... And then it's just...
Go ahead, Josh. Go ahead.
No, continue.
How did you, with Etta, for example, and we're going to get back to school in Berklee and Musicians Institute in a minute because it really applies to some of the things that I want to ask you. But I would imagine you started in Etta's band as her guitarist and then transitioned into also being her producer. How did that happen?
Well, that, as I said, I've been writing about it recently. Well, it's firstly a wonderful keyboard player named Gip Noble who co-wrote Love TKO for Teddy Pendergrass, and we were in the Jones Girls together, and he had a little fusion band in town and stuff. But anyway, Gip called me for a demo session. Remember how many demos and studios there used to be?
Yeah.
In the late 70s and 80s. I mean, there's just always a session going on. And this one was for Etta James, and I was aware of her, and she liked me. And then she kind of brought me into she had kind of a revolving band at that time. She was just kind of getting healthy again after being on the Olympics, the opening ceremony, and she was healthier than she'd been. And started with some gigs at the Vine Street Bar and Grill. And
I used to go hear you play there, right?
Well, yeah. And what a great venue, and I lived right by there, right off of Gower Gulch. I lived in Hollywood over there.
Mm-hmm.
And anyway, so doing that, and the band would revolve. We had Andre Fisher from Rufus. We had the great Reggie McBride on bass. Bobby Martin, a wonderful keyboard player. And then with her 7-year Itch album, she started to kind of gain momentum and added horns, second guitar player. And at that, briefly, Mike Finnegan was kind of on board, and he's such a towering, presence. But he was busy with Crosby, Stills and stuff, and other great artists that he worked with. And as just said, I remember with a gig at my place when the word had come down. And I remember the other guitar player, Bobby Murray, was really encouraging, because I didn't want it. I mean, I had led before. I led Jon Lucien's band at Carnegie Hall, but despite my youth. But yeah, I took it on because I could at least write charts. I could count off tempos and keep a kind of a cool head, on stage, and that's how it all started. She actually, what we've been realizing about Etta lately, that she chose us,
Right.
She saw something in all of us, like even Brian Ray, I'm sure you're aware of.
Sure.
From Paul McCartney's she handpicked. Yeah, so she would handpick, and I take somewhat of a, pride is too strong a word, but I thought, wow, she saw in me something that would work. And then she used every aspect of me, my arranging, my leadership, my studio smarts, my producing. She, a little bit of jazz with Cedar Walton, took me to Nashville to play on a country record. She used, talk about, efficient usage of your resources. She used the whole guitar player, and then so.
You use the word pride. And I think that's a really great choice of a word, and you have a lot to be proud of. I think as we all do, because, you're showing up and you're giving 100%. And when that is recognized by your fellow musicians and artists, that's a lot to be proud of, and those are really beautiful moments when you are seen for everything that you are and who you can be.
I think that's great that you kind of extracted that out of that. I think it's right between pride and momentary relief, because we're always
Right.
You know?
Great.
And, you know, there's so much nuance been put on the word pride, but in and of itself, you know, it's not a negative quality, especially if it's justified. So I appreciate you kind of just spotlighting that for a second. And yeah, I'm amazed at what we got to do together, especially with Etta and, of course, a lot of the other stuff too.
Well, we're going to move around a lot. Since this is graduation time right now for the next generation, a lot of kids are leaving high school and college. I thought it'd be interesting to focus some of our show today on graduation and getting out in the real world. And I wanted to discuss your experience both at Berklee and Musicians Institute because you went to both of those really wonderful schools. How did your experiences in both those colleges, prepare you? And how did it fail to prepare you for the world beyond school?
Well, such a great question, Terry, because I had functioned as a professional guitar player. I think I was 22 or something, and I had saved up a little bit of money to go to Berklee. And I feel like, and I'd done some correspondence course. Remember that? I did. You know, where they would send you lessons, and you know you'd harmonize something or whatever. So I'd done a little bit of prep on that basis. So when I came in, they slotted me in, and I only did one semester. I did, you know, ear training, some private guitar lessons, and some sight reading. And that's when one of the guys in my dorm said, "There's a school in Los Angeles where Larry Carlton, Lee Ritenour, you know, all the you know, Joe Pass, Joe DiOrio, and here's the truth: it was a financial thing. I had about enough money left for maybe one more semester, but I could get a whole year at MI with what I had left. And, you know, Howard Roberts, of course, and it just seemed like a fit. So it was like kind of an economic decision. And also, I mean, I regret not getting the full orchestration, arranging chops that, you know, those are our friends that, you know, went the distance at Berklee. They, you know, made them great composers, arrangers. But I really, you know, like I said earlier, just zeroed in on this guitar aspect. And so that was Berklee obviously had an infinite amount to offer me in guitar playing and everything else. But it was an economic decision, and one I don't regret. I mean, I was studying with, you know, well, Joe DiOrio was a guy I spent a lot of time with, but there was this great Don Mock, incredible guitar player, Ron Eshte for chord melody, private lessons with Mundell Lowe. Howard Roberts was always around. Tommy Tedesco. You know, I got to give you at least one great Tommy Tedesco story because I was there. He said, he sat us down, you know, and here's Tommy at the peak of his powers, and he said, "Okay, guys, today get out your books. I'm going to give you some scales that you need," and then started rattling off union scale for various engagements. He said like a 15-minute jingle, 15-minute minimum, you know, overdubs. So that, I think, in that little, you know, story kind of encapsulates the difference between the Berklee thing and, you know, as I mentioned to you that my daughter went on to go to MIT. Right. And through visiting her there whenever I was in the, you know, that part of the States, I got to really see, oh, this is academia. I get it, you know, and of course also the part where you walk into a great job when you're done, you know. Right. So I think Berklee was more the hallowed halls of that. But if you think of all the guys, you know, great from Michael Thompson and Vinnie Colaiuta and, you know, Pat Metheny, everybody that passed, it's almost a rite of passage. You go through Berklee. Did you go? Yeah, I went. So I can't take away from that. But as far as just the hands-on, okay, you know, let's make a living as a guitar player thing. And GIT
when you
did,
got,
and it was GIT, not MI. It was GIT.
Right, you were at the Guitar Institute, right?
Yeah.
So did you feel? Well, let me jump in. What were your reading skills and technical skills when you were going to the Guitar Institute and your semester at Berklee? Were you already fairly adept?
This reading thing always comes up with guitar players, and
it does. It's kind of
a New York trumpet player. My daughter's Sicilian godfather, Ronnie Buttacavoli, who was Etta's trumpet player. He put that New York spin on it, like, Josh reads not great, and that's it. It's like some college, and
which is fine.
When we were coming up, it was like you lived in mortal fear of a Frank Zappa audition, the Black Page, Chick Corea, and this and that, that's going to come up, and you're just going to be, you're reduced to just a fraction of your ability because they put dots in front of you,
I'm so glad you said that.
I can look back on it. I can look back on it now and say, it never, maybe once or something in a crowded studio with a full orchestra, there was an exposed nylon string passage, and somehow that moment passed. But as you and I both know, they're the guys that do that, and they're, I think Carl Verheyen is one. There's a new guy, Andrew Sinowick. Dean Parks. There's the great readers, and then you got to call those guys for that. So it's not a make or break it skill, because of our instrument. Obviously, if you're a violinist or an oboe, it's not negotiable. We're fortunate in this whole rock and roll thing that, Glenn Campbell, for example, he was the one member of the wrecking crew that wasn't a great reader, but he was so creative and such an incredible musician that he's made his mark just as much as anyone else, if not more.
That's right. He was known to say, well, let me just hear it one time, and he would hear it and have it.
Right, because you're an ear guy, and that's the problem. Most of us, those of us that taught, it's very hard to reverse engineer yourself into a reading guitar player. Now, my great friend Reggie McBride, a wonderful bass player, told me about this guy in Palos Verdes, Joe Valenti. And he was the conductor of the Palos Verdes Orchestra, and he had a method for sight reading. He passed away a few years ago, but he had these books, and he didn't care what your instrument was. If you said, hey, well, I don't know which D I'm meant to play on which string, he was not involved in that. He got you reading and basically said, if you're breaking tempo, turn the metronome down. In other words, if you can't keep it continuous.
Right. And
so that helped my reading a little bit, but I think, it's like our buddy Michael Thompson said, your chops are your chops, at some point. And, every now and then, reading, if you do spend time on it, it will bump up a little bit, but it's very hard to be one of those guys that studied classical. But the good news is that I've survived and functioned at the highest level of our industry, as the reader that I am. And of course, charts and the forms and sine and coda and rhythmic figures and stuff is a little easier. And so that helps. Like I say, reads, not great.
Well, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm so glad that you're spinning your and sharing your very clear perspective on it, because I agree with you. I remember my very first major tour audition with Billy Preston in 1981, and I brought my resume, which was just made up bunch of I had done some things but not a lot, but and had gone to Berklee, and so I handed this piece of paper to the tour manager, and he goes, "What's this? What the hell is this?" I go, "Well, it's my credits." He goes, I don't need that. He goes, "Can you play?"
Right.
He goes, "Just that's all I care about, and Billy cares about. get in there and play. Show them what you can do.
Right, and that's the beautiful, as you mentioned, I work with HB Barnum now. HB is a great R&B arranger, conductor, but part of that was our late friend Miles Joseph had turned me on to it, because HB needed a guy, kind of a rock guy, that could do some rock stuff, but with some reading. And there I was, right at that level. I can read the part, mainly chords, but there's, here comes a little passage, and, either sing it to me or give me a minute to work it out,
Right.
And it's just that you can't survive. I say you can survive at that level as a guitar player, and a lot of us have. And you think about the night sweat of like, oh my God, what if they put a chart in front of me? And you just, as a mature musician, you just know, don't take those calls or say, can you send it to me ahead of time and stuff like that. And you take away this tremendous fear that it's one day there's going to be this grand humiliation.
Right. You'll be found out, and like you said, there's so many things that you, Josh, are amazing at, and a lot of us, myself included, and to be judged on one small aspect of that, it's an interesting part of our business, if you, but that comes with age and maturity and experience, where you just, what you're great at, and the areas that you're not great or that are weaker areas, and you work on them, but you don't put yourself in situations that are going to compromise you or the artist.
Right. And there's a certain maturity with, but like I say, taking us back to, the late 70s and the idea of as a, Frank Zappa or Chick Corea or Joe Zawinul throwing a chart in front of you. And of course,
sure.
There's no way you can express yourself because you're just terrified. Well, anyway, that's enough on that, because we've definitely survived that. And you know what? I will still continue. I go through these bursts of breaking out the books and the metronome and say, you know what? Let's get it together, fine. And now, of course, my eyesight's not great. And then I say, well, maybe I should have been wearing the glasses all along. So, I think we've definitely given that enough of a nod, and hopefully some encouragement in both directions for any aspiring, guitar player.
I totally agree. So let's talk. You're talking about practice routines. How do you stay sharp? Do you, especially and does it change when you're on tour? I imagine it does, or when you're home. How many hours a day are you able to practice or play, or talk about that?
I think for me, it's more playing. Of course, one can always, I think those years when you go to Berklee and you do like 4 hours, and of course the supreme guys that did 8 hours plus,
right,
and have the chops to show for it. But for me, it's mainly always playing, and then because there's a different intensity especially if you're actually playing at a session or on stage.
Right.
It goes to another level, and you kind of don't get those chops just running your scales, but you got to keep. Oh, and Carol Kay, who I recently met out in the Mojave Desert, where she lives out there, through her son Peter, a wonderful drummer. But she is not a believer in scales, and she's quite passionate about it. And I wish I'd been exposed. Her thing is it's all arpeggios and running scales. She says it's bad for you. It's bad for your technique. So I'm just sharing that because I've been exposed to so many wonderful mentors and people. So that because I still do my scales and a diminished scale or whatever, or groups of 3, groups of 4. But I think at this point it's kind of set, unless I kind of got on I'm still working on kind of a fluidity of ideas and expressiveness, in tune bending, a vocal quality, which is a weird kind of muscle thing to get to squeeze that much. I remember once read that Eric Gale practiced, and I thought, practice what? He's got 3 licks,
That's right.
But the more I would dive into Eric's thing and just realize what a master! What an incredible grandmaster! And I got to say, for me, coming out of that Berklee GIT thing and into the working world, Berklee GIT, parts of me was still thinking Mahavishnu Orchestra.
Right.
But I suddenly started listening to more and more Eric Gale and said, you know what?
And David T. Walker on the West Coast.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. David T. is the other side of that same coin, you know.
The masters.
And I just said this, and to hear him with Quincy Jones, with Paul Simon, with his own solo albums, and say this is the beauty. You know, it either speaks to you or it doesn't. So as I say, it's not really about a chopsy kind of thing. It's about really being able to execute, and it's a different kind of muscle thing. So I guess I'm avoiding letting you know that I don't practice like I should, but I'm always playing guitar, and different, somebody said I've got about 3 people's shows in my head at all times, so that helps too. You know, Paul Anka recently wanted to give us this Latin Gabriella and Rodrigo and Gabriella, the duo.
Mm-hmm. The 2 guitar players. Yeah.
Yeah, and it was a thing that he wanted to throw, and I was like, oh my God, how am I going to play this thing? And
yeah, they're fantastic.
And it was all this arpeggio, and I said, well, if it's going to be in the show, I got to let me just
start working on it up. Yeah, I could figure it out.
Yeah. So just staying active, and as you so generously said, I mean, I do stay busy. It's a lot of different things, and I guess that's the real blessing of it. But that's how I keep the parts moving, and then you've got to work on your tones and stuff as well, which I was always, as a kind of jazz guy, I kind of didn't always give that the attention that some other studio guys have always given that, about your tones, your pedals, your amps, and all.
That's actually bringing me to my next question, which is when you are working on things at home and the nuances of trying to the nuances of making your playing fluid and vocal sounding and getting your bends in tune. Is it important for you to be playing through your amp and through your pedals, or just guitar and amp, or do you play acoustically on your electric guitar?
There's the couch practicing that we all indulge in, while watching TV, and that's good. And but I find if I will just take the time to plug something in as an electric guitar player, the inspiration is so much better there, and I don't always do it because. So I do both for sure, and then years on the road of back in the day practicing in the bathroom if we're having to double up and have a roommate or something, and so you learn how to make music with just an unplugged-in electric. But if you'll just plug in some delays and stuff like that, it makes it more fun, and plus you learn what works better for creating the tones that you hear in your head.
Right, because that's what you are going to actually be doing when you're performing or making a record with somebody. You're going to be. It's about the tone as well as about the feel and about the groove.
Yeah, and I can speak to that actually. Seeing as we're sort of looking at this whole arc that we've gone through together, basically, in this best part of the world, Local 47, to be doing that, And you remember the racks and the big stereo rack? It's not that long ago. I'm sitting here staring at my Eventide, which actually belonged to Michael Thompson at one point. So it's kind of the holy grail of it's a rack piece, But I feel like I lost so much. I mean, I survived, but I was so busy trying to make that whole thing work for me that it was such a relief to come back to just amps and pedals and feel like I could express myself, because you'd have like gain issues and So people that mastered that, and to this day, you know, I just watched a live thing of The Edge and U2, and I said, well, you know, he sure does have that thing together for sure, you know. But
absolutely.
I'm glad to get back to just a good sounding amp or two and some pedals. It's just, you know, that's where we're coming from, and I just feel like the ideas and the tones flow a little more naturally that way. But that's very personal stuff, you know. It's personal choice.
So let me geek out just for a moment with you, you know, because you do have wonderful tone. It's one of the things I've always enjoyed about your playing. And your overdrive, are you a tube overdrive or pedal guy or both? What makes you the happiest?
Well, you know, as I said, I feel like as a jazz guy, I've always underaddressed this. And then even on the blues circuit, I was kind of, you know, you get those diehard blues guys, why, you know, saying, why do you have pedals on stage kind of thing. And I used for the, once again, my wonderful friend Michael Thompson gave me a Klon, which was the holy grail. We didn't realize at the time it was going to become this huge thing.
Right.
But so I had the best little organic overdrive that I, you know, up until then I had like a tube scream. I think I tried everything, a little Marshall thing. I'd always take something because you get in a backline twin, or later on it became the DeVilles, and so I always needed that, you know, and because I would want to go from, you know, clean rhythm to a lead sound, and so there's you know, so many great players that work the amp so much better than that, but so I would use, you know, just something to drive it. And of course, we're always looking for the ultimate one of those. But yeah, I have a new box from Keeley that I use on the road a lot called Oxblood, and it seems to work really well with a certain guitar and amp combo. But it's endless, you know. I mean, we're all ready to try a new dirt box. You know, and I remember, you know, so I don't really have the answers on it. I will say that old TS-10 Ibanez Tube Screamer, which is not the super desirable one, but it's the same one used by John Mayer and Stevie Ray and stuff. And I remember Albert Collins at one point had one, and my friend Bobby said, yeah, he saw yours, you know, and I just thought, wow, here's the guy with the most killer tone of all time, you know, but I couldn't imagine that he'd notice. But at some point, he had the little green box on stage, you know.
That's great.
You know, so it's by any means necessary. I'm a good, the tone is in your head, and my advice,
yes,
which, you know, nobody always asks it, but I say
I'm asking.
I say go as clean and as dark as you can stand, and you'll be all right. And I mean, I'm talking about with your crank sound, you know.
Yeah.
Cut the highs. I mean, we, you know, to almost an Eric Johnson type of, you know, not a woman tone Clapton thing necessarily, but you know, the highs is where you're going to hurt somebody and yourself, and then. You know, more gain just kind of makes you disappear and your dynamics go away. So go as clean and as dark as you can stand, and then go a little beyond that, and you'll probably be in a good area, you know, as long as you're not doing metal or, you know, something that requires that other thing, which hasn't really been my experience to do too much of that super overdrive. You know, just get a good tone and have some sustain. I think that's all we're looking for.
Yes. Thanks for answering that. I want to read a quote of yours. Oh, go ahead, Josh. You hope what? You just answered it really clearly.
Read something.
So I read a quote of yours saying, and I'm paraphrasing, I left a few things out, but my generation has witnessed so many seismic shifts in music and obviously in the business of music. There are new paradigms in the industry, but ultimately, I believe music should be a healing, positive force. I think that now more than ever, we need to fill our social function to energize, to soothe, to inspire, to facilitate healthy introspection, and bring joy to the planet. Thank you for saying that. And could you elaborate on that a little bit more, or what inspired you to say that?
Well, it sounds well. It actually sounds great. I mean, I want to be apologetic about it, but honestly, because
no, seriously, yeah.
Well, just because it's kind of high-minded, but I do feel.
But it has clarity. I just wanted
as a musician, we should be providing a service because everyone else is out there busting their butts, right? Building cars and growing food, and it's like, okay, what do we do? It shouldn't all be set up for us to just explore like how great we can become, So that's my first thing is that and then I've noticed even with Paul Anka, which was such a big difference from the Etta James crowd, but the one common denominator is you realize people are happy, they're smiling, and who wouldn't pay for that, in this day and age, so you have to provide that and be a part of that. There's always place for high art and, things like they said, we're here to entertain, not to educate, but there is a place for the higher stuff, and I understand that. But I do think we have to, especially at this time we're all questioning everything. How did we get here, to this weird point? And I'm not going to really amplify that too much. Mm-hmm. But if we can just bring a little happiness and just share, help people to calm down, help ourselves to calm down. I think it's as relevant now as it's ever been, really. And we're sort of getting back to the feeling in the '60s, but so that's what that was about. And because the other side of it is all of these sort of talent contest kind of things, and I really got spoiled with Etta. I mean, she. Actually, to answer your question, she and I had kind of a silent understanding that we were doing kind of, without getting too spiritual, it's a music ministry. We're here to heal people and help people feel better. And, otherwise, why do we deserve to do this at all, really, as a job? I mean, it's one thing if it's going to be your hobby. But she was about that, and as outrageous as she could be on stage, she was always about touching people and easing their pain and letting them know that they're not alone in whatever it is they're going through. And that's a valuable service to provide, I think. That's, I think, what I'm driving at with that statement I made.
I think there's a lot of clarity. There's a lot of clarity to what you're saying. And we are in the business of providing joy. We're in the joy business.
Right.
It's not.
Great word. That's the word I was missing. Mm-hmm. And I think,
the reason I'm thinking of joy, because in listening to you tell those stories, it brings back a memory that I have of playing at Vine Street Bar and Grill with my band, and Etta used to come out and hear me play. And she would sit, which was amazing. I didn't even understand what she was doing.
Which was the band? Which band was it?
With my band, I had Johnny Vatos Hernandez was playing drums. I don't remember who else was in the band. It was
with Oingo Boingo?
Reggie, with Oingo Boingo, and Reggie McBride was playing bass with me, I think, back then. And but he's a drummer from Oingo Boingo, and so it was this eclectic band. I had different people rotate through the band because I always wanted to have the best musicians I could find, and they were always in and out of town. Back in the 80s, we were doing records or getting a major tour. But I remember, like, it was an intimate club, and Etta would be right there at that front table cheering me on. She would be like, it would be like she was at Baptist church, and she egged me on, and it was once or twice that she came to my shows, and I was just so moved and filled by like her joy, by her energy.
Yeah.
And she would lose herself in the music.
That she'd be there,
Oh, it was such an honor and a thrill. And I would thank her, and she'd go, "Oh, I love you. You're so great." And it's just, artist supporting artist has always been something that is a very important thing to me. I think that's part of the reason I said yes to doing this show, was to support other artists and, of course, to mentor and share information. But I really believe that we're all on the same team, and we're all in this together.
Well, yeah, you have to. I mean, that also takes a certain maturity, because you come out. It's like it's a gunfight. In the beginning, if a guy can play faster than you or louder than you lost out. But
right.
Like I say, at this point, we can look back and say, hey, everybody hopefully has found their own voice to a greater or lesser extent, and so nobody really crowds out anyone else, because that's. But of course, there's generic skills as well. Let's not make it too Pollyanna. You got to have good time, and you got to play in tune, and all the other
and
stuff.
Sometimes that's all those things are still not enough. Like I remember, I don't know if you remember this, but you were one of the handful of amazing guitar players that came and auditioned for Wilson Phillips when I music directed for them. I don't know, 30 years ago, whenever that was.
Wow. I don't remember that because I was working with Carney and Wendy in the studio, and I enjoyed them so much,
Yeah,
and
they're wonderful.
Just their vibe, and we had fun. And I don't remember actually going after the gig itself. So
you did. I think.
Where was it? SIR? Where did we do it?
No, it was in the Valley at Third Encore, and it was just it was years ago. Michael Thompson told me to call you, I think, and
how wonderful!
Because MT was staying in town and touring, turning tours down.
Right.
You came in. I already knew who you were. We weren't friends yet, but you came in. We kind of knew each other, and you slayed it.
Yeah.
And it was great, but that's not who they chose.
What they had to, they wound up settling for Michael Landa. I mean, how did that go?
There was no settling. It was an amazing band.
Yeah, I know. I'm kidding.
I know you are. The other guitar player along with me was Basil Fung, and Basil was one of the people that had played on their record, so they knew him, and he was wonderful as well. And so he got the gig, and it was Jonathan Moffat and Jimmy Earl and Mark Hugenberger and Tom Evans. It was great. It was an amazing band. 2 guitars, 2 keyboards, but I remember you coming in and slaying it, and so did the other couple guys that came in, and I thought, oh my God, this would be so much fun to like go on the road with you and play together, and sometimes it's just not the right time. And again, I was looking at your credits and saw that you had recorded with Carney and Wendy, and it reminded me of that audition,
that's
which was
such a great thing. I feel like I lost a brain cell there, but I think what happened was it's also during the Etta James time. So,
right.
I was solidly with Etta. There was a little mini break one year when we fell out, and that worked out so great because I came back and everything was sort of reset. And then we went on to get all the Grammys and record with Cedar Walton. So there was a little break there, but about halfway through. But over the 25 years, I mean, I would look into it. I remember auditioning for Rod Stewart as well, and because survival and bread, that's something probably not too much fun to touch on. That harsh reality of.
It's really important to talk about survival and bread and the harsh reality of our business. So go ahead. Go for it.
Well, I'm just saying I would look at, something like a major tour where this could, like people would say, buy a house tour kind of thing. Like, hey, you go out with Phil Collins for 2 years. It's all hearsay. And now I'm sort of looking back, it's like, did it really happen, for anybody? But, so like I say, even though I was basically with Etta, but, it's not a full-time schedule. So you would get calls, and Michael was always looking out for me. He's always been like a mentor to me. And so it all makes sense. I'm just wondering what I had to prep. Did I have to prep, the big hits, or did we just kind of jam?
No, you came in. No, everybody learned. I don't remember. It was a long time ago, but I had everybody learn the same 3 songs or whatever it was. And we came in because and you had done your homework, but it's so interesting that, it kind of gives a real clear glimpse at what our lives have been like, because you would think, you prepared for it. You didn't just come in and fake it. You came in, you just knew it. You knew that the sounds, the parts, the solos, and, but you don't remember it because there are so many experiences, clearly, that we've all had that you can't possibly remember all of them, especially all the ones that almost happened. I'd love to, write the chapter gigs I didn't get. I actually auditioned. Trevor Rabin once recommended me for Mr. Mister. And of course they were working with Steve Ferris, and there was a lot of kind of textural volume pedal whammy bar stuff, and he had his big rack, and
and I kind of assembled some kind of a rack system for the audition over there in West LA Music, I think, and we just wound up just jamming on the blues, because they soon figured out, well, this is what this guy does, and let's just enjoy playing and get on to the next guy, So that's I think it's great that there were so many opportunities around. I gotta say, in my defense, I don't think Carney and Wendy were at the audition.
No, they weren't. But they they were looking at pictures and videos and whatever they. And the management was involved too. I have to tell you, I just wanted to put the band together.
Oh, sure.
Because I was capable of doing that, and we didn't have a lot of time, and they insisted on having, setting up an open call, kind of a meat market thing. And I made sure that I got in the people that I knew would be great choices, including you. But it was, and then they just went through bios and pictures, and they chose. We all chose together, but it was, I didn't, they had, it was, their management company, or it was Irving Azoff and HK Management, and they were very particular about what they wanted and who they wanted and what they didn't. So it was, it was political. It wasn't just based on how.
No, but I got to follow up with something I've given a lot of thought to lately, which is, throughout the Etta James years, there was always that feeling like, well, this is so amazing, but, I kind of need a gig. I would like to, the financial thing, the security thing.
Right.
And yet, now that I look back on it, it's like there was not a better gig. What other gig in the world would have you 25 years with the same artist, a great artist, in the studio recording, doing 4 jazz albums with Cedar Walton that you barely qualified to be in the room, winning Grammys, it was and she knew that about her own gig. She knew that. In fact, when I met Jeff Beck once at LAX, he had this weird sort of envious look in his eye when I was introduced to him. Like, really? You've been with Etta for and I saw him with Beth Hart at the Hollywood Bowl doing like, I'd rather go blind. It's like, you really wish you could have had 25 years standing next to Etta James. I get it,
It's true.
So that, in retrospect, more security and comfort would be great. But you know what? It's a gig from heaven. It's just, I get it now,
and also just for our listeners, that's not the only thing that you did. I mean, you also found time to, You played with Little Anthony and the Imperials, Cher, SophieB, Hawkins, Teresa James, Jon Lucien, Jose Luis Rodriguez, Jim Belushi, Jeffrey Osborne, Shanice, Atlantic Star, Jack Wagner, Roy Orbison, Rita Coolidge, Martha Reeves, just on and on.
Well, the sessions, two big things. One was the sessions, and how, playing on demos leads to playing on more demos. That's an old LA joke. But I did work with Dick Clark's good old rock and roll band, and even though that seemed like a weird little gig, it was such an education in Chuck Berry, Bo Diddley, the Shirelles, the actual people. So that's like you study, you learn each person's song. And then the other thing was my friend Guy Roche, and started doing all the demos for Diane Warren. Mm-hmm. And then she would co-write with like Desmond Child. I don't know if they ever co-wrote, but Albert Hammond definitely, they wrote together. And so then in that demo world, and that's something that you kind of miss, that energy of going in to sort of try to create the next hit, and then sometimes that stuff winding up on the radio, or even if it's redone after but that led to a lot of things. That was like the Roy Orbison, I'll never forget, in the studio with Diane and Roy, mm-hmm. And you'd never forget a moment like that. But because Etta was never full time. You always have to do a lot of stuff. You got to do whatever's going. That's. I guess some people, Jay Graydon is so great about. I don't know if you've ever gotten to interview him, but he's got so much great stuff.
Yeah.
But he just said like he was a top studio guy, and he saw it kind of, coming to a close, and then producing it, and just very focused and very dialed in on what he was doing, and with the career to go for it. But for the rest of us, we're always just ready to answer the phone,
That's
to
right.
see what,
mm-hmm.
where can we make a contribution, a musical mm-hmm. contribution.
Absolutely. We are heading into the last 5 minutes of our conversation, and I want to end with 3 questions that I ask all of my guests. The first is a 2-part question. What does making it mean to you, both personally and professionally? And also, can you share 3 tips for success that have driven your career?
That's all one question?
What we could do an hour on that. The first part is, what does making it mean to you, personally and professionally? Making it
is survival in the industry, and being able to keep a roof over your head if you're very lucky, over having a family. And I've been married for 33 years, and my daughter grew up in a beautiful part of the city, Culver City, and mm-hmm. so that was making it. The fact that I got that done with my guitar playing, so that's making it. And then the other thing, staying healthy and staying, just not getting caught up in all the insanity that some people try to attach to this. It's a job, it's a trade, and it's a profession, and to be proud of that, and to be be all that you can be good at it, and stay on top of your your job, be good, concentrate, and then create, get free and create too, but to be serious about it, and even with all the joy and glee of it, it is a thing of great value if you get to do it. Just to honor it, I'll just say that. And the successes that I've managed to survive just doing this, amazing.
Yeah, you've done both really beautifully. Just watching you as a friend, having a beautiful family and also a very wonderful career, with its ups and downs, like many of us and most of us. But, it's been...
I agree.
I really think it's fantastic that you've been able to accomplish both. My final question, Josh, at this point of your life, with everything that you know to be true, what would you tell your younger self?
Wow. That's a James Lipton moment.
Mm-hmm.
Not too much not a lot of regret, I got to say, because that question, begs, what would you do different, kind of. I would say just have a little more faith in that things are going to work out, because it's all been miraculous, really. Every chance meeting is like a miracle that it even happened. And then the things that don't work out maybe weren't meant to work out for reasons seen and unseen. You have no idea. Like maybe you weren't supposed to be the next rhythm guitar player for the Rolling Stones. So I think just that constant questioning, I think that's just kind of a personality, flaw of mine. Or like, am I doing the right thing? All that question. My daughter the other day, she bought us up a really great camera to go. She went to England, and I said, are you taking care of that camera? And she just looked at me and said, "Dad, stop worrying." And it was kind of like the global stop worrying, and it really hit me right in my heart. And so that's what I tell the younger Josh: stop worrying and embrace this incredible journey of life and music. And if you're blessed to do it, I couldn't see a more fortunate career than my own. As I say, I've got to, take care of my finances and figure out how I'm going to survive, the rest of my life. And it's great to have that challenge in front of me and the tools and the opportunities to navigate that.
Mm-hmm. Well said.
So that's, don't worry so much is the short answer to, and I'm still telling my present self that too.
Right.
I hope one day I really pay attention to what I'm telling me.
Well, why don't you go back and listen to this interview once we put it up on? Yeah, I actually learn a lot from going back and re-listening as well to these conversations because I get a lot of insight from some pretty amazing people, including you. We are out of time. I don't want to finish this conversation without mentioning that everybody not only go to your website, but go to iTunes and check out your 2016 album, After Hours. And it's, really a fun record. And in our last 30 seconds, is there anything more that you would like to say to our listeners?
Just thank you, and just my gratitude and genuine humility at getting to do all the amazing things that I do, and just always through guitar playing. As I say, back to that, what an incredible gift of life to be able to work that, and we have to earn that every day. So, amen to that. Josh, thank you so much for this. Thank you, Terry, and thank you for having this forum. Wonderful. It's been a great hour, and everybody, thanks for listening. We will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in with us.
Tune in again next week for another great episode of Making It with Terry Woman.
This is Jackie Bertoni from Jackie's Groove. Come join me weekly on my journey through the music business as I take you behind the velvet rope, interviewing industry notables such as Al Di Meola, Michael McDonald, and Al Jarreau, to name but a few. Listen to their stories on being in the studios recording #1 hits and onto the stages throughout the globe. Allow me to be your music historian. You can hear me live every Monday at 2 p.m. and every Wednesday at 12 noon Pacific Standard Time or 24/7 on jackiesgroove.com. Ready to get your groove on?
Hi, this is Tim Dolbear from Eclectica Studios. I'm a full-time mixing and recording engineer. I work with Grammy winners, labels, and indie artists, using state-of-the-art digital mixing and restoration tools and the very best in analog gear. Really, though, it's my ability to bring tracks to life and fulfill your vision for your music. This has made me sought after by producers and artists worldwide. So spend your time working on music and not chasing a mix down a rabbit hole. Go to timdolbear.com and check out our free one-song mix offer.
You know what's all around you every waking moment of your life? Marketing. You're choking on it. I'm Scott Robertson, and when it comes to strategic PR, branding, and marketing, I've seen it all. And actually, I'm still seeing it because bad marketing never sleeps. Join me each week on May the Best Brand Win, right here on Intertalk Radio, and learn how to make the marketing for your brand unforgettable.
Are you serious about your music? Are you ready to run with the big dogs? The experts at Pitbull Audio have the gear to get you into the game. From leading manufacturers like Mesa Boogie, Fender, Pioneer, and American Audio. To sound your best, you need the best. Pitbull Audio can deliver in rehearsal, on stage, and into the big time. Dropping beats, shredding guitar, or making the crowd roar. Whatever you dream, Pitbull Audio can help make it happen. We are Pitbull Audio. We want you to play it loud. PitbullAudio.com.